Hi there, Dr. Gila here with a quick note before we get started today to invite you to join the waiting list for my program, The Regulation Reset. This is a small group, high touch program to help you feel less reactive and overwhelmed and more capable of handling all the hard stuff in parenting without snapping or losing it. When you join the waitlist, you get VIP perks and discounts and early access. Go to parentingwithconnection.com/waitlist. That's parentingwithconnection.com/waitlist. And now, on to the show. Hi there, I'm Dr. Gila, and this episode was a treat for me to record, and I hope it's just as much of a treat for you to listen to. This is my first interview with an adult child and her single mom. And it's not just any adult child. This is Marisa Corcoran. She is a copywriting coach. She is my copywriting coach. If you're grateful for my supportive spaces and resources for single parents, you partly have Marisa to thank for that because she really helped me lean into that niche. So I'm really grateful for that. Marisa is the creator of the Copy Confidence Society, which is an amazing community. If you are in the online business world, I highly encourage you to join. Marisa and her mom, Rita, are from Syracuse, New York, which is where I used to live. They consider themselves the original Gilmore Girls, and I can totally see why. Marisa's dad died when Marisa was almost 2. We cover a lot of topics here that I think are really going to resonate with a lot of you listeners, including grief and loss, the power of community, and all the different ways that community can look, and the special connection that I think often single parents have with their kids. And we cover the resilience lessons and opportunities and some of the other blessings of being raised in a single parent home. Hopefully, you will find it to be validating and inspiring and a fun listen. All right, let's dive in. Welcome to Single Parenting with Connection, Not Perfection, the podcast that honors your messy reality. It's the support you crave without the usual emotional landmines. I'm your host, Dr. Gila, and I promise I will never tell you to just tag your partner in. Before we start, quick reminder. While I am a licensed psychologist and a certified coach, this podcast is not coaching and it's not therapy and it's not a replacement for medical or psychological advice. It is for educational and informational purposes only. All right, let's dive in. Welcome. I'm so excited to have you here, Marisa. It is always awesome to chat with you, and what an honor to have your mom here. Rita, welcome.
Thank you. Well,
We're thrilled to be here, Gila.
Yes.
Thanks for having us.
And it's your
Special.
debut, right? Your
It's her
podcast.
it's my
debut.
podcast debut.
We were saying
I
before
love
we
it.
started recording, it's my mom's podcast debut here.
Yeah.
It's my first time doing a podcast with my mom. And you were saying here on the podcast, it's also your first time interviewing two people.
Yeah.
So it's just a day of all the cool firsts.
So many firsts. I love it. And what an honor. And yeah, it is. It's my first time chatting with, is the first for a lot of things, but first time chatting with an adult raised by not first time in my life, but first time on the podcast.
There are others of us out in the wild.
First time on the podcast interviewing the adult raised by a single mom. So I am really looking forward to hearing both of your perspectives. I know a little bit about your backstory, but of course listeners don't. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, first of all, Rita, how did you come to single parenthood?
I was married to Marisa's dad, Tony. I was so nervous I couldn't get pregnant just because I wanted a child so badly.
Yeah.
And I did.
Hmm.
And 9 months later, this child showed up.
Yeah.
I knew when I married Tony that he had kicked a butt of cancer, and he was fine. I mean, he was fine. We were chugging along. He was very supportive because I felt, you get that postpartum feeling, but he was extremely supportive. And then I got over to that, and then he gets diagnosed with cancer again.
Mm.
It was awful.
Yeah.
And I had this child, this baby, who was a little over a few months old. And I'm thinking, what? And we were happy. I mean, I remember the joke People said, because we had both been on our own for so long, people said, "Oh, you're gonna have to adjust." And one day he yelled from the living room, "When are we supposed to adjust anyway?" So we
Mm,
really did. And I know that Marisa sings what he sang, you know.
yeah.
Unfortunately, 2 years later in May of '86, he passed away.
Oh
And
my
I have
goodness.
not even a 2-year-old.
Yeah, I
Sweet.
would turn to he died May of 1986 and I turned to July of 1986. So if you
Wow.
wanna see some sad photos, you should definitely look at the photos from my 2nd
I know.
birthday.
Oh my
Because she
goodness.
still threw me a birthday, which I think is really beautiful. My family all came together.
And
But if you
Yeah.
look at the photos, there is a moment where you're like,
everybody was so
oh God,
sad.
now that I'm an adult, I'm like, wow, what a day. Everybody had to,
Yeah.
literally my dad died May 28th, 1986. My birthday is July 29th, 1986. So it's literally almost exactly 2 months later. It is why
Wow.
thank you for throwing me a birthday party. But
Well, I
you
remember.
look at these photos and you're a little bit like, oh gosh, I feel so bad for all the
Yeah.
adults in this photo. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was important for me to do that, and it's interesting that I remembered that birthday, and my parents, let me just say something, Gila, I had amazing parents. Um,
Mm.
my mom raised 6 children, and she was
Wow.
amazing. You can attest to this. She was a great grandmother, and there was no filter sometimes. She just told the truth,
Uh-huh.
and the grandkids appreciated her, but I could not have done it without my mother and father. Because I
Mm.
was grieving. And I didn't realize this till much later in my life that my daughter, this little girl who grew up, was watching me grieve. And I was
Yeah.
trying to not show it, but it had to affect her in some way, you know.
Yeah.
But then as the years went by, I realized I never thought of it as a single mother. I just I'm a mother. That's how I
Mm.
looked at it.
Mm,
I didn't choose to be a single mother, but
Yeah.
many people don't. So
Right.
it's not like I'm alone in that club.
right.
Yeah. I mean, you were going through this intense grief. I mean, I
I
can
was.
only imagine. You were newlyweds. You had
I
just
was.
gotten
We were like
married.
it was off. It was.
Yeah.
It's throughout the years I've met a couple other people. A friend of mine, same thing happened to her. So I think
Yeah.
as you get older, you realize you're not alone in that. You know?
Yeah. And I think it's so relatable, and this is one of the challenges of single parenting. Often we are grieving or going through sort of this loss, this adjustment process, while also having to show up for our kids and while supporting them through what might be a tough, you probably were not super aware of what was going on, Marisa, if you were two, but I'm guessing you also sensed something like there was grief and sadness and yeah,
I knew she sensed it.
yeah,
As I got
yeah,
older, I realized it. Mm.
yeah. Do you have any memories from that time, Marisa?
Uh, a tiny bit, for me, it was like remembering, but it's very vague. It's very, not vague isn't the word. It's very opaque. It's
Mhm.
very, it's not clear. It's murky that there was someone here, but they're no longer here. But it's
Yeah,
almost like, if you're in a movie and the person's like in the fog, and you can't necessarily make them out in the fog. And I think I
yeah.
had a feeling of that of being very little. It was like, oh, I think there used to be a person here
Mm.
or a presence. Now I don't even think I would thought it was a person, right? I was two, but there was a presence here,
Mm.
and that presence is no longer here. And that was an interesting thing to wrestle with. And then it
Mhm.
probably wasn't until I went to school that it was really apparent I'm different in some way.
Yes.
Right.
From 0 to 4, really, I was so young anyways. Okay, I understood that there was this presence, but I was also, as my mom is saying, well, loved by my grandfather, by my uncles. So that was my normal, right? And so there was those moments like school, I would say when I started school for sure, we could talk about that. But it
Yeah.
really wasn't until I was an adult and I had one of my best friends in my life, Diana, who you've heard me talk about before, Gila,
Yeah.
share with me, I'd say, gosh, I can't imagine if I had been older and like really knew my dad because when did Lauren Arlotta's dad die? We were older though.
Mm,
And Laura, we knew
we
it
were older.
growing up. And I remember feeling so sad
Middle
for
school.
her because I was like, my gosh, Lauren like knew her dad. And I thought, my God, that has to be
Like the man that
horrible, and
Mhm.
and I remember I was like, oh, that wasn't me though, And so it wasn't until I was older and Di said to me, no, there's a whole different kind of grieving when you lose someone 0 to 4 years old. That's a whole different thing. And I had never really known anybody else like me that was 0 to 4 like that. Actually, the only other person I've ever known to lose a parent between 0 to 4 is my uncle, is my Aunt Anne's husband. He lost his mom when he was 4 years old.
Same.
So he's the only person I've ever known that's like me. We're like these two, like in the wild where, and I can't speak for him, but I think maybe I can. It's like you're grieving someone that is the reason you're on earth, but you will never have your own kind of memories of them or know them. So they'll be told to you in the same way in the same way a fictional character would be.
I get that.
Is I'm sure the way that, at least I have, and again, I can't speak for my uncle, but I'm sure there's feelings of that where you're grieving somebody that is so much a part of why you're on earth, but you will never have your own kind of memories to share.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And also the people all around you have memories. So the presence that you felt, I imagine, was not just from like before he died, but also he was present in everyone else around you, right? In their thoughts, their memories, their spirit. Yeah. Yeah.
I did.
Yeah.
Who was really very, and I can say this, was my father, Grandpa. He rode that line between grandfather and father.
Yeah.
Like I remember once I called her, we were at my mother's and I must have said her name, Marisa, and she went, "What?" And he goes, "Never mind what, go see what your mother wants." So he did that. But yet he was still her grandfather. Am I correct on that?
Yes, he was. No, he's the best. I'm laughing because we were like, literally the closest you could.
They were so close.
Such a gift, the relation that I had with both of my grandparents. Yeah.
It's so beautiful that you had those other support figures, other attachment figures in your life. I know a lot of people listening might really envy that. They don't have that. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
By the way, Marisa, my father's father died when he was 2. So
okay, there's a nut. Yeah.
now you sort of know someone.
I'm very, here in New York City every day on my morning walk, I walk through the 9/11 pools every day, like every day. I don't know if you know, but if you see a white flower on that name, it means it's their birthday that day. So every day I try to find a white flower and I look up and I'll read about the person. Like I'll find their obituary and I'll read about them.
Wow.
And it's the reason I say this, the short of the long, is that it floored me to see how many people at the time of their death had very young children or a partner who was pregnant or was about to have. And I've thought about this for a long time of like, I would love to like gather these peeps together because we do share this, where so many of these 9/11 kids were born into very similar to me, where they wouldn't know their father or their mother or their parent in some way. So I know they're out there, so it's interesting to see. And I know you were saying, Gila, about people might be envious that we had these other people in our lives. But I guess I would say to anybody's out there listening, yes, we had an incredible family, but my mom also had really great friends as well. So even if you don't have the family, I think looking around and thinking about that chosen family, like we're very lucky to come from this big Italian family where everybody's super supportive. But my mom also had incredible friendships and really fostered those friendships. So it was never like we were isolated.
Never.
She had such incredible friends that also stepped up to support and to help. So I would say anyone who's listening, I think there is a chosen family as well.
Yeah. And so really like the importance of community and of having other people, not isolating, right? So of inviting other people into your life, into your world. Yeah. Which is not always easy.
Well, I remember my mother. I remember her saying to me, I was kind of down and she goes, "Ree, you got Marisa to think about." Like, she was just, this is right after Tony died. I was floored, and I would just sit there and stare out into space. And she came and sat next to me one day.
Yeah.
Said, "Honey, you've got a child." And you know who else? Was my grandmother, which was my dad's mother, my nanny.
She was alive.
I loved her.
She lived till I was 17.
I loved, she was like my dad. She died at 98 and my dad died at 98.
Yeah.
And she was very supportive because she lost her husband, although in the 40s, they were older, but she had not only lost her husband, my dad lost his sister in a car accident. That's who I named it.
Wow.
So she was also very supportive.
And she understood loss.
She really did.
She really understood loss because she had lived it.
She understood that.
Yeah.
So, and then I do want to share some fun stuff. Every Saturday we'd go to the library and then we go
Mhm.
to the movies. I'm a huge film junkie. I've loved films since I've been a child, and so we get up on a Saturday and we'd go to the library, and, in fact, we have this picture of the 2 of us that I don't know, someone took that just happened to be one of those pictures that came out so well, and
Yeah.
then we would go to which was then called the Carousel Mall, it's called Destiny now.
You've been there too.
I know it well.
You know
And
it well.
we would go to the movies and get
Mhm.
something to eat and stop at the stores, so it was her and I for the
Yeah.
longest time until she
Yeah.
got older, obviously. She's never not included me,
Yeah.
still calls me. I
Mhm.
think we still have a really, really wonderful relationship, but there were
Yeah.
times that I would say to my friends, "I hope I'm doing the right thing, I don't have a husband," and they'd say, "Ree, what she's going through, every child goes through that." I mean,
Yeah.
you just, sometimes I needed that support there, but then luckily I had people around me that supported me.
Mhm.
Yeah. I want to ask you more about the special relationship that you have. Before I do, I just don't want to forget this one thread of I'm curious, grief and loss is not like a one-time thing. It is there for a long time. It comes in waves. It's unpredictable. I'm curious if you have any like insight, words of wisdom of when you were feeling when it was hard, when it was distracting, the, tough feelings that you were going through. What helped you be able to sort of maintain that relationship with Marisa and sort of stay present and move forward?
I think Marisa. I mean,
Mm,
I realized that even when I was feeling it, I really tried to keep it at bay
mm-hmm.
because I did not want it to affect her, even though it was, and I didn't realize that. But I think what got me through it was that I vented it. Like I would call my
Mm,
mother or I would call one of my friends. I never tried to keep it inside. And I think that's
yes.
important. Grief is a funny thing and people grieve differently.
Yeah.
Willie Nelson has a song about it. You can't go around it. You have to go through it.
Yeah.
And people do it differently. I found what helped me was remembering something he did that was funny
Mm,
or something that made me feel so special because he really was good to me.
mm,
And and then sharing with friends that I was feeling that way. So I
yeah.
didn't keep it inside me because I was so
Yeah.
afraid it was gonna affect her. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Absolutely. And I love that you said that. I talk a lot on the podcast and with my clients about giving yourself permission and
Mm,
space and resources
right.
to feel the feels, right? Because if we don't, they're going to be there somewhere and they're going to come exploding out.
But also, I'm a retired social worker. So
Mm,
for 23 years, I ran what was it? The senior programs for the city of Syracuse.
mm-hmm.
And the center that I was mainly in were not I mean, we dealt with mental illness, we dealt with
Yeah.
addiction, we dealt with a variety of issues. So that always kept me, you know,
I think what she's saying is that she had a thriving career.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think what we were saying before about the chosen family or having friends or people, I think, and I maybe you can speak to this, Gila. Maybe it's an Aries thing, but
Mm,
there is this sense of like she is very good at finding community.
yeah.
And I don't think you even think consciously of it. She just finds community. So it's community with her friends or community with the career that she had and being in a leadership role. I mean, I would
Mm,
even say for you, for church too.
So yes,
Like
I was going to bring that up.
I
Yeah.
think you had a really strong faith and a community of people there as well.
It's good.
So you do a
mm,
really good job of leaning into community that I think maybe other people it might not come as natural to them to lean into
yeah.
community.
But I brought you in on that too.
Yeah, no, she didn't. I mean, I didn't
Yeah.
really have a
Yeah.
choice in all of these communities,
No,
which is fine. But you definitely, I think maybe you think that this is what everyone does, but that's not the case. Why do you think you lean into community? I mean, I think maybe because grandma and grandpa also had community, like
grandpa.
yeah, grandpa. My grandfather was also a Libra, who had community. He was also somebody who leaned into community. So I think you're
I'm sorry,
naturally
he did too.
somebody who is also like recharged by being around other
I
people,
am.
not isolating. So work,
Yeah.
friends, and church, and
Yeah.
yeah.
I wonder if, like, sometimes when you're in a position where there's sort of a choice point. Some people, they retreat, they withdraw, they become more isolated.
Sure.
And some people, it makes them even more motivated to reach out and go out and create community. And I wonder if that really tough situation that life threw at you, that you were in, it's almost like a survival instinct for some
Mhm.
people, right? Like, I need now to reach out more for the belonging and connection that I maybe otherwise would have gotten from my marriage and in my home.
Thank you. Exactly.
Yeah.
And it, just going to work every day, never knowing what was going to walk in the door, it fed me as well.
Yeah.
Not only was I helping them, they were helping me. I'll never forget the day of the funeral. And I walked into church and it was filled with that really touched me.
Many of the people from the center.
From the center
Yeah.
were there.
Were
Obviously,
there.
my friends and family,
But a lot of people from the center.
were there.
Yeah.
And so they understood. And so I would listen to their stories,
Yeah.
and so it doesn't make you feel that alone because you're thinking, okay, they get it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have a really, really best friend who lost her husband to COVID.
Oh, wow.
Very tough. And she said, I always knew, like, I always respected how you felt and I understood it, but I don't think I really did until I lost Al. So I
Yeah.
think a lot of people have said that to me over the years,
Mm.
that I've never experienced that. And when they do,
Yeah.
there's an understanding.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's a big
Yeah.
part of why I started this podcast in the first place, right?
Yeah.
If you haven't experienced that, it's hard to really, like, you can get it in your head, right? You can get it
Yeah.
intellectually, but you don't really get it. Yeah. So what's really coming through to me is the power of connection, right? And so for you, that was a
I
bigger
needed that.
community. For other people, it might be smaller, one-to-one connections.
Sure.
And it sounds like your husband also, he had a gift of connection as well. And what a beautiful thing. And so that's a good transition to speaking about your connection between you two. We all know the Gilmore Girls as the
We
like
are the
classic.
Gilmore Girls. We are the original Gilmore
We are the
Girls.
original. I think so.
We
I
are the
think
original Gilmore Girls.
I've heard so many people talk about, and I feel it, there's something special about the connection between a single parent and their kids.
We do have a connection.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell me a little more about what that was like growing up and now when you're as an adult, Marisa?
It's interesting.
Well, I'll let no. She's like, I'm so nervous to be on my first podcast, and then
Is that okay?
no, you're great. You're great.
You're doing amazing. I
you're
love
doing
it.
amazing. Go. This is great.
I'll let her talk about that. But, as she got older, we were like two peas in a pod, or she was with my parents. But I remember as she got older and she started to kind of go off on her own,
Mm,
I remember saying to a therapist friend of mine, I feel like I'm losing something. Or she says, no,
yeah.
Rita, she's growing up. So your relationship will become different. And it really has, in the sense that but maybe it hasn't, because I've always listened to her. I could tell the minute she walked in the door something was wrong. This is my daughter. Hello. Hi, sweetie.
That's me saying hi,
know.
sweetie, to her, by the way.
Mm.
I know everything's okay. Well, pretty much. But when I hear, hi, mom, I just know when she texts me, I can even tell,
Yeah.
no, something's not right here. Or,
Yeah.
or just the opposite.
Yeah.
And, it's not that uncommon. My mom had that feeling. Like if you walked in the door of her house, she'd go, what's wrong? She had this, my brother Mark always says that. I have a brother Mark. Like I said, 6, but my brother Mark said she had this ability to know the connection. So I learned that through my parents.
Yeah, you were really attuned. You are really attuned from the
big
sounds
time.
of it.
I
Yeah.
really think I am.
And I think when you do have that attunement and that strong connection, it is harder when the relationship shifts, right?
Shift.
As it does when any child grows and becomes a tween and then a teen and then an adult. There is a transition, a shift, and a letting go that can be really.
I had to let go.
Yeah. Yeah. Marisa, what was it like for you growing up?
Yeah, really.
I think, for me, it was normal. Like I said, that's what I knew. And what she was saying, we did everything together. We have like our Saturday adventures to the library and to the movies, and we would go to my grandparents. I was at my grandparents after school. So,
Yeah.
spent a ton of time there. I guess the best way to describe it is that, so I have a best friend from the time we were 3 years old.
Mm,
And this is like a couple years ago, really. We were talking, her and I, and she was saying that as a kid, her kind of favorite place to be was really at our house.
mm-hmm.
There was a lot of turmoil in the way that
Mhm.
she grew up, and
Yeah.
I never thought about that until I got older, because to me I was like, oh well, there's two parents there. There's
Exactly.
all the things that one would um
Yeah.
emulate. And I actually, as I've gotten older, I've heard this from a lot of my friends. Oh God, I loved coming to spend the night at your, oh, when your mom would make the Toll House brownies, or we would watch the Video Music Awards every year. Like there was such a like, oh my God, we loved coming, go across the street, because I had a big park across the street, and there was like a pirate ship, one of those like kids, and we would like go sit in the pirate ship. And
Mhm.
my friends will still talk about, oh my God, I loved coming to your house. And so I think that maybe sometimes you, meaning you, mom, may have felt that, oh, we don't have that. But as I got an adult, my friends saying the place that they loved to be was at
Sure.
our house. And I think that's the
Yeah.
best way to describe the kind of very loving and safe place that I grew up in, that my friends
Yeah.
who maybe came from a whatever normal is, whatever we think of as a, two parent, would talk about, oh gosh, I loved being at your place, because I think we had such a strong connection. And so to me, I always felt very taken care of and loved and
Mm-hmm.
And that,
Yeah.
supported.
and it's interesting because sometimes when her friends were there, somebody would meander in the kitchen if I was there to talk.
So our
And
house was really,
it
I mean, I
was.
a lot of my friends with their homes were too, but I think maybe one might think, oh, ours wouldn't have been because maybe we
Because
didn't
I
have
didn't
the
have
typical,
exactly.
but that
Yeah.
wasn't the case. My friends felt very loved and supported and taken care of there. And also with me, you also got my grandparents in the mix too. So there were these
Mm-hmm.
other cool people that were also involved, or my, in my, my family, they knew my uncles or my aunts. Like if you were friends with me or a part of me, it was like, you weren't just stopping at us. It's likely that you knew my grandparents too, or you knew
Yeah.
friends of my mom's too, that were just kind of involved in the mix,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's often this narrative, this sort of like cliche about like, well, there's something missing or less than in a single parent home, something broken, right? And what you're speaking to is that it's actually different, right? It's not
Exactly.
less than, it's different. Sometimes it's calmer because, as we all know, and as a lot of single parents know, coming from maybe they started out not as a single parent, and things are
Sure.
much more calm once that tense and conflict laden relationship is no longer in the home. And so it's not necessarily less than or
Right.
like a feeling of something missing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we live in a society where
Yeah.
literally people would say to me, "Don't you think she got cheated?" Well,
Mm,
I don't know if she got cheated. I mean,
mm,
maybe not knowing this wonderful man who was her dad, who
hmm.
she is more like than she will ever know.
Yeah.
But it would bother me. I go, cheated. But as I got older and talked to people and realized that my home was very welcoming and kids
Yeah.
Yeah.
liked being there. So,
Yeah.
and I think it was because of our relationship.
Yeah. I actually remember, Gail, you make me think, I went to a sleepover one time. And I remember being at the sleepover at the house, and the family was, two parents, everything that you would expect or want in a really, really nice home. And I remember staying the night there, and the whole night was just chaotic.
Mm.
And I just remember being like, "My gosh, I can't wait to go home."
Yeah.
Just like a kind of a tension and a chaos that we didn't have.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think, she's talking about how attuned she is. I think I also have this.
No, you
Yeah.
do.
And I'm like, ooh, I could just feel like, I remember even feeling like,
Yeah.
oh my God, I don't even know if I want to eat my cereal. Like, I just want my grandfather to come
Yeah.
pick me up, and I want to
Rough.
go back, So I think that
Yeah.
there was something where I did feel really, seen and taken care of. And again, the only times that it really struck me or bothered me, it's at school when
Yeah.
it comes time to make the gifts at Christmas or the Father's Day or the Mother's Day, where you're like, well, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm grateful, and I'm happy to share like the stories of where I had really great teachers that kind of helped me through, but I definitely, felt that. And then I would
Yeah.
say at home, just to be funny for a second, there was something though, I will say, once you're a middle schooler or a teenager and you realize, when you're kind of in your bratty phase,
Ugh.
you're like, well, she doesn't have any backup here. So,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Now, obviously, I could never do that in front of my grandpa, but it was like there were times where it was just us. So
Mhm.
maybe I
Yeah.
would push the line because I
Mhm.
knew there was no one that was going to come out of the other room and be like,
True.
do you know what I mean? So it was
Yeah.
kind of like a friendship sisterhood, but sometimes I would, I was a brat, I was a teenager, would definitely probably say things that maybe if we had had another parent present, I'm sure I
Oh,
wouldn't have been able to.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So sorry about that,
that's
sweetie.
all right.
Sorry.
That's okay. Listen.
I want to go back because you both have a few times touched on this notion of like, and especially when you were growing up, Marisa, not that you're that old, but it was a different time than now, and there were
I am middle-aged.
fewer single parents. And so, right, it was you were different probably than
Mhm.
certainly than society expected your home to look,
Mhm.
right? Your
Yep.
family to look. You were different than I know, Rita, than you expected and wanted and hoped for it to look, and different than how things are structured, and different than, at school, how all those activities are. I'm curious if either of you have any advice, words of wisdom of how to navigate that when there are the sort of societal perceptions, judgments
Yeah.
about
I
it.
mean, I would say this was the 90s, right? Like early 90s. So
Yeah.
I think the way I can share this, as you know, Gila, being the storyteller that I am, is
Yeah.
this, and you can tell me if you ever said this to her. So this is a very clear memory that I have. I was in kindergarten. My teacher's name was Miss Silvestri, and we
Yeah.
had to make these clay hands at Father's
Uh-huh.
Day, like your hand in the silver clay, and you make the hands, and everybody was making them for their dad. And I remember and as you can imagine, I'm not like a
Yeah.
quiet kid, and I'm
Never.
kind of just sitting there, and I will never forget like Miss Silvestri coming over to me
Mhm.
and kind of kneeling beside me and acknowledging, okay,
Mhm.
Marisa, like let's figure this out for you. And we've decided, okay, I would make mine for my grandpa, which
Mm.
and then after that, I never it would hit a little bit at Father's Day, but after that I was like, great, get me in the clay hands, get me in the whatever we're
Yeah.
doing, because I would just make it for my grandfather. And I was lucky that even though he had raised 6 kids of his own, he was like proud to display my arts and crafts. And so I think to answer that from our perspective, I think is and I don't know if you ever talked to Miss Silvestri about this, but I think
Yeah.
maybe like the other caregivers or the teachers or the people that are around, maybe
Hmm.
before the beginning of the school year or something, just being able to share where there might be those triggers or those things that
Yeah.
maybe they could think about for that child, which I'm sure you're able to have that conversation more than we were in the 90s. Did you
I
ever
Right.
talk
oh
to Miss
yeah,
Silvestri
I
about
talked to
this?
Miss Silvestri. Sister Margaret George
My
was.
second grade teacher, she was great too. Yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Sister Margaret George rolled with. I mean, she was just everybody.
She's very progressive for being like a nun.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, she
Sounds
didn't
like
make
it.
sense of the time. She was already kind of old then, but she was cool.
So I was able to really talk to her. And one
Yeah.
time Marisa was having a little problem, like feeling left out. And she called me. I think you know this story. And
Yeah.
she said, do you have anything that was your husband's that you can give Marisa? And he had
Mm.
this money clip with the
The money
kid
clip.
on it.
Mhm.
And I gave it
Mm.
to her and she was thrilled.
Yeah,
So
she
she
took out this
showed,
yeah,
go ahead.
you brought this box. I remember this.
Yeah.
'Cause we had that blue phone, you were
The
talking
blue,
to Sister
the
Margaret,
blue
the
phone.
blue phone. And then when you got off of the phone, so that's interesting, is like she didn't necessarily tell Sister Mar so but I would say if you could have that conversation, but obviously this was something that was
Yeah.
innate in her as a great teacher. But I remember then you brought out this box. It
Mhm.
was almost like an old shoe
It
box.
was a shoebox.
It was, right? My brain. And then you opened it up, and in there were these things I'd never seen before. And they were
Wow.
dad's things, like this money clip, this pair of glasses that we still have, all
Mhm.
these things that were his. And I was like, oh, wow.
What a
And I
treasure
think,
chest.
yeah, I think that Sister Margaret was trying to instill, like, if I had this connection, then I wouldn't feel as, anyways, she was right. But I would say, kind of to wrap that up, is
Flip too.
yeah, I had good teachers, but I think it's a mix of, communicating with the other caregivers or the people in your life. But I think we're also living in a time where I think these conversations are, as you know, Gila, from being a part of our community, we've donated to this place called Experience Camps, which is
Hmm.
4 camps of kids who've lost a primary
Oh,
caregiver,
didn't know.
and I always think, my gosh, where was this camp when
Yeah.
when I was a kid,
Yeah.
But I just think there's more resources now, but I still think being able to have the conversation about, hey, I think any family, by the way, no matter who you are, to say, hey, I
Yeah.
just want to give you an idea of who our family is and who we are at home.
Yeah.
That's what I would say.
I definitely think
Yeah.
there's a lot more resources, a lot more
Oh, definitely.
awareness, a lot
Yeah.
more, yeah. But I love that. I think it's a great idea. And I'll also add that sometimes your kid may seem fine about it and it's not an issue. And then suddenly it is, right? These things
Sure.
can change. It can come up when you don't expect it. And so expect the unexpected there. And
Yeah.
that definitely having that open conversation with the caregivers in their life is a great idea. Yeah.
I think for sure. And again, like you're saying, Gila, I mean, it was normal for me. And so when I got older and started to notice some of my like patterns as an adult or how I would communicate or how I was in relationships, I didn't really realize that it had such an impact about just this overall feeling that I am always kind of like, even if things are wonderful, just innate in me, I'm always going to feel like the
Mm,
shoe
It's going to
could
drop.
drop. So I am somebody that,
Like that.
like two ways I would describe it is there was this book I read called Sick in the Head where Judd Apatow had interviewed all these comics, all these comedians.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to be in a book club with my
Remember
friends
this.
in New York. This is years ago. And there was this part of the book that
Gilmore Girls.
literally nobody noticed but me. Everybody was just saying, oh, when Jerry Seinfeld said this, when so-and-so said this, which were funny, by the way. And the
yeah.
thing that struck me and still struck me to this day is that Judd Apatow interviewed Albert Brooks, who lost his father when he was like 9 or 10. And he talked about this feeling for the rest of his life of like always being that kid on the playground that was
Mm,
swinging and playing, but was also looking around at everybody else like, y'all know this is going to end, right?
mm,
And I
Thought
think,
the ending before.
and that's what he said. That's what Albert Brooks said is that the reason why is that he saw the end before he even had a chance to
See the
experience the
beginning.
beginning. And I think that I'm very much like that. And so
yeah.
sometimes like even I always call it like the Mistral, if you know that the movie Chocolat when she feels the Mistral, Juliette Binoche, like I'm
Mhm.
always in the because I'm always still like in the Mistral of like, okay, I might have to like go survive and take care of myself. So there's always this thing where I never kind of feel fully, I mean, I'm working on this, my
Yeah,
keep going,
yeah.
but to feel settled.
Sure. And
Just because
Yeah.
of, like I said, when I was younger, to go back to the beginning, when you asked me, there was this presence and the presence is no longer here, but it was opaque. And
Yeah.
I think that carried through to me. And again, until I was in my 20s and my really good friend died, was like, I think this has something to do from you losing, your dad. And I was like, I mean, I didn't really know him. Yeah, sure. And then I was like, wait a second. I
Yeah.
think I think you're right. So yeah,
Yeah. There's
yeah.
like a different type and different level of alertness.
I'm on high alert.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. And so
she is.
yes, I'm on high alert,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
also think it's what makes me, and I'm sure other
Yeah,
kids of
I
single
know what you're
parent,
gonna say.
there's a sense of like a resiliency
Yes.
of
Mhm.
okay, well, if this, and again, I think this is particular maybe of a child of a single parent where that their parent was, where the person had died, like a widow
Right.
situation. I think there's an extra, uh,
Yeah.
okay, well, this is your own, like for real, this is your only life.
Mhm.
But even when I'm with clients or the work that I do, it's just like, y'all, this is our only life. And
Mhm.
sometimes I have to
Yeah.
like curb myself because my like ambition level is sometimes at a place that I have to sometimes curb myself
Driven.
because the
Yeah.
drive I have is so like,
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's a wisdom and perspective that usually people get much later in life, I think. And
Yes.
yeah, internalize that at a really young age. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah.
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 So clearly, Rita, you have raised a beautiful human, an incredible person, right? And I think that one big fear that a lot of single parents have is all the sort of the weightiness, and you just described some of the weightiness that come with especially a widowhood situation. But there's heaviness that comes with each path to single
Sure.
parenting, I think. And so there's a lot of fear around how does that weight and also not having another person, or maybe there is another person in their life and there's tension, right? So whatever it may be, how that's going to affect your child in life, like later in adulthood, their resilience, their emotional well-being, and their ability to thrive in this world. And I'm curious, from both of your perspectives, if there's anything that you did, Rita, that really helped you thrive, Marisa, and if there's anything that either of you wishes maybe was different or had been done or not done that you would change or recommend changing.
The latter question, I think as a mother, as you get older, you look back and wish. I don't think this is
Mm,
just a single mother. I
Yeah,
think this could be parents in general that
sure.
wish that you had handled the situation differently, or you
Yeah.
look back. But I think I always listened to her. I mean, it's a give and take relationship. She was not afraid to tell me what she thought either. So
Mhm.
believe me, yeah, she's a Leo.
I believe you.
That I know. She's into the
Astrology.
astrological signs, but
On my bracelet.
I know with a Leo, and but I think I constantly was there for you. I constantly listened. I pushed, like when I knew you, like in theater.
Yeah,
I
that's
mean,
what I would say.
like when she was in sixth grade, she went in. She's this great superstar. You know what I mean? Joe Latito, who ran the Salt City Center for the Performing Arts, said, "I need her in the adult ensemble because of her voice." So
Yeah.
I think that. I mean, I was always there for I can't explain it.
No,
It's
I think what you're trying to say,
attention.
I think you're doing a good job.
I supported her.
Yeah, you
That's
supported me, but I think I think
Yeah.
there's something unique in a single parent, especially when it's just a one on the
Yeah.
Gilmore Girls,
Right.
is that you really prioritized me.
that's what I
Yeah.
said.
Like I really
Yeah.
was a priority. And if I wanted, and
It was the priority.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
And so,
Thank you.
I wanted to be in theater. I wanted to, so she really
support
supported that or pursued that or found ways for me to go after that. And my grandparents too, right?
Oh, definitely.
And to support that. So what I would say, like, you made me that priority. So again, that's what I was saying. It wasn't until those times where I'd be at school that I felt like was like missing something, and
Mhm.
at the same sense, I'll also say this: as much as I was the priority, you also had your own life.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So there would be times, and I think this is important for single parents, right? Because if I can imagine somebody hears me say this listening and they're like, oh, yep, the prior, and that's all they'll
Yeah.
hear.
No, no.
But there were times where like I was at my grandparents'
Sure.
till late because my mom was, on parish council at church, or she was out with
friends.
having dinner with her friends. And obviously she took me to a lot of places that a lot of young kids normally, I mean, I went to a lot of adult dinner parties, which
Yeah.
I think,
Well, I
but
had them.
yeah, sometimes if my grandparents weren't available, then I was like, well, I was coming to the dinner. And
Right.
luckily my mom's friends are always
They loved you.
loved, and I was very often the only child
Yeah.
at
My
these
kid
dinners.
can relate. Yes.
Yeah, like
I think
literally the
it's a
only kid at these
common,
dinners.
yeah.
But it's not like she stopped. It wasn't like, oh,
Right.
grandma and grandpa can't
Thank you.
babysit me. So you
No.
called Judy and said we weren't coming over. No, it was like,
Yeah.
get dressed because you're going. So it was still a regular mom who like inconvenienced me and was like, we're going to the grocery store and you got to deal with, you know what I mean? It was all of
Yeah.
those things too. So while I was a priority, she
Thank you.
also had her own life and her friends.
I did.
Mhm.
And I would say like do differently. I mean, that's not your fault. I would say I would do differently is like, I mean, I knew she didn't have any, once I got to be a teenager, like I said, I was like, she didn't have any backup, and I will say something to that, which is like, on the one hand, I am very grateful because I do have a friend of mine who did lose her father. We are colleagues together, younger, and something that we've talked about, which I think has made the difference in my relationship with my mom and maybe with her, although they've really done a really beautiful job lately of really mending that, is that her mother would go on to kind of like have men around that maybe weren't that nice.
Mm.
And I never
No.
had that.
Mhm.
So it was just us. So while I'm grateful I never had to have that, I will also say, not to say that there's anything different, but I do sometimes wish that as
Sure.
much emphasis that you put on me or the center or a career or grandma and grandpa or
I
your
did have
friends,
my other.
you maybe would have gone back out and started dating.
Mm.
While I'm glad none of these horror stories I've heard that I ever had to deal with, I
Right.
think that there could have been a nice middle ground, or maybe you would have met somebody or brought somebody
Sure.
around at some point, which
Sure.
didn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I agree. I think it was fear. I remember my mother saying to me, I was looking for another Tony,
Mm.
but what I did is I cheated myself because
I
Mm.
don't think you cheated yourself. You had such a full, awesome life.
exactly that I didn't, but it didn't mean I didn't miss it.
Yeah, of
I
course, of
wondered
course.
Yeah.
like I remember, true story, we went to Cathedral.
This
That's
church
our path.
in
That Cathedral,
Syracuse.
it's Catholic Church down city.
Which means now, Gila, that you lived in Syracuse, I mean, you need to know everything.
And she's
about
very
Syracuse.
Of
it's
course.
a progressive parish. So,
Uh-huh.
but I would go in with her and sometimes I would just sit there and like she'd go with the other kids before we would start mass, or she'd be across the street, with the other kids. And I remember just staring off one day. And there was another man who I became friends with, John, who was a therapist.
Mm.
One time he came and sat next to me and he said, I think I know what you're feeling. I looked at him and I choked up because you're wondering what it would feel like to have two parents, to have
Mm,
that's I can just see the way you're looking. It was so weird, and
yeah.
it was right, and I often wonder how he saw that. You remember Mr.
Mm,
Sobchak?
Yeah, Bethany's dad. I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's her friend Bethany's
Yeah.
dad, and he
yeah.
saw that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it just so it wasn't that I didn't miss it, but maybe I was fearful, so I put it into everything else, and it
Yeah.
fulfilled me in some way. If that
And
makes
I think that's really, I hope it's validating for others to hear that I think it's completely natural to have those thoughts, those yearnings, those feelings come up. Again, like we said,
definitely.
grief, whether it's grief because someone died or grief because of a lost relationship or something that you never even had that you wish that the loss of the life you thought you would have, that it can sort of hit you in unexpected ways and in waves, and that's completely
Well,
natural.
that's why I wanted to say that in reaction to what
Mm,
she said. It wasn't like I didn't think about it. I'm not sure.
yeah,
I think it was fear. I
Yeah.
really do.
I'm sure a lot of single parents can relate, whether it's,
Yeah,
yeah,
someone dies or a
I didn't,
divorce or whatever. I'm
and
sure there's
and
a
there
fear
were
of like, I don't want to go through this again in some
right,
way, whatever that means,
and there were. I mean, there were a few along the way, but nothing ever came of.
yeah,
But again, I never,
A few.
yeah,
well, I'm talking about Danny and
Oh, okay, okay,
that my
okay,
friend
okay. I
who
just
became more
laughing.
my friend.
Right. But
And
not
this,
that I ever like
well,
knew or
no,
were around
exactly. I
me.
didn't bring them.
yeah,
It was
So that is interesting. As some of my friends maybe that I saw, like maybe their parents got divorced, so they got remarried, or like I said, I didn't really know what another kid like,
right,
But I would
yeah,
say
yeah,
to kind of
just
go
being
back to
honest.
that, I think
Yeah,
you did a good job of really cultivating our relationship, you know,
I
um,
tried. Yeah,
and
yeah,
also having your own life and friends and
yeah.
things
I
that
was
matter
going to say
to you,
that
like
too.
goals.
What I was hearing was not just that she was the priority, but that you really valued and prioritized connection and relationship and
I did.
showing up. Like I haven't heard you talk about, I made sure she had this fancy toy and this fancy. It
No,
was more about like prioritizing that relationship and that really that was a value, I think it sounds like that you grew up with, Marisa, that relationship and connection was a core
More important.
value.
Yeah, that's all I knew. And maybe when I went to college was like the first time that I was like, oh, this isn't, because in high school, you're with the people that
sure.
your like goes with like you're with the people, And when I went to
Yeah.
college, I just was like, oh, other people did not grow up where this was like
Mm-hmm.
important or,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think for me, that is always the biggest is connection and relationships.
I
And
think
I want everybody to sit around and like tell their stories. And we hear and I always want to hear everything about everyone's family. Like,
Yeah.
tell me everything, And
Yeah.
that was always, I think, because we were, with my grandparents or with other, and I actually always think this for me is, I remember saying this at my bridal shower. I was like looking around the room and I realized I'd said this in like my little speech that day was like, yeah, even though I didn't grow up with a dad, I was really fortunate to have all these other people in my life. And in that room, it was all the women, all these incredible like women that maybe if we had had two people that maybe wouldn't have spent. I mean, I knew like my great grandmother till I was 17 and,
Mm.
spent a lot of time with her.
it's a big
My great aunts, like people that are like, wait, who are you talking about? I'm like, this is my great aunt. They're like, your great aunt.
yeah,
Like,
Ellen.
my great aunt Helen, my great aunt Alice, my great aunt Mary, or even
Yeah.
like my aunt Lisa's mom, who's like my mom's sister-in-law, her mom, her name was Pearl, who's not even like technically related to me. But we had this time because it was us to be like, yeah, we'll come over, we'll spend time. So it was like we were even close to people that maybe in a way
Yeah.
that if there had been another you'd have your own family, you'd go do stuff that
Yeah.
so I got to have all these other really rich relationships in my life with my aunts, my Aunt Sharon, my Aunt Donna, my Aunt Connie, that maybe other people wouldn't have. Of course, you love them, you see them at the holidays, it's great. But there was something because it was just the two of us, like, yeah, we'll come over and have coffee, like we could just insert ourselves and
Yeah.
hang out. So I'm really grateful for those kinds of connection and relationships.
I'm
I love
also, I
that.
may not have had the love in that sense, but I had some really good guy friends.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I think that's what I'm saying. You had
Yeah,
like good friendships
that's what I'm
and
trying to say.
connection. And
So I had all
yeah.
the, it wasn't like I didn't.
Yeah,
I
we
had-
definitely we had connection and we had
Mhm,
friends and we
mhm.
had people around and I think that's something I've carried as an adult more
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
Although listen, I was really excited when I got my Nintendo.
Yeah. Well,
That's
who
for
isn't?
Christmas. You know, I got my first boombox and my Mariah Carey CD. I mean, I'm not going to hate on the gifts. I am a Leo,
Yeah.
you know, and a
No,
Leo rising. I'm
absolutely.
not going to
Yeah.
hate on the
What was
gift.
that? The Game Boy.
My Game Boy. And I remember
And
being at school and people like, you have a Game Boy, you know, because it was just me
yeah.
to get stuff. It wasn't like we had all these kids. So, you know, but really it was about that connection and
Yeah.
family relationships. That is always, that is number one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is a great segue to my last question, which I realized I forgot to warn you that I ask all my guests this.
Oh,
So,
no.
Oh, go for it.
as you know, I'm passionate about parenting with connection, not perfection. And so I ask everyone who comes on the podcast to share something that you do in your life that fosters connection, whether it's with yourself or with someone else, maybe in this case with each other, and then someplace in your life where you have embraced imperfection.
Oh, that's a
Well,
hard.
where do you think you embrace? I mean, your whole life is connection, but where do you think lately maybe you're embracing connection?
Now,
Sure.
sure.
No wrong answer.
Okay. Couple
No
of
wrong
different
answer.
things. I'm retired, but I have a cute little job at Barnes and Noble.
Mm,
Okay, so there, not so much now, but then there was this kids her age. I was like the mother of the store, so that
yeah.
fed me. But I also, I live in a senior building now. After I sold my house, I moved into a
Mhm.
senior building, and I think that, I mean, they're always knocking on my door.
Yeah.
Oh, because Rita, can you help me with this? I don't know how else to. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Is that
still.
the question, Yela? Did we get it right? Kind
Am I
of? Is that what
getting
you
it
mean?
right?
There's no wrong or right answer.
No, but I think I think I just by my own personality foster connection.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah.
matter what it is.
I think you're asking somebody that this is like in the same way that somebody's like breathing. Like
Yeah,
this
I was
is
gonna
just
say
what
this
Fuji
is your
is.
water. Yeah,
Yeah.
you
I
find opportunities to connect with other people, whether it's people that you know really well or strangers. You find opportunities everywhere you go for that
well,
connection.
even it's interesting, Gila. I have been out of high school since 1968, and I've gotten really close
This is what I was going to say for you.
to somebody who I would never, who would have ever thought.
They went to high school together and
Yeah.
then like saw each other at the reunion like
Yeah.
all these years later and like
When we started
became
to
like
talk,
besties like 50 years
Well,
later.
well, what
Wow.
happened, she lost her husband,
Okay.
and I was able
Mm,
to. She said, "I'll never." You were the only one that said to me, "Pardon me, it sucks, Glenda." Like I didn't
yeah,
try to, and
yeah,
she goes, "I'll always remember that." And then we just built that friendship. So I have a lot of
yeah,
those friends too, but
yeah,
I'm constantly
yeah.
with other
On the
people.
go.
I am.
What I'm gonna pull from that, like I'm gonna zoom out and pull from that of often these situations that we find ourselves in as single parents can feel like a source of isolation,
Mhm.
the way that we are different, but it can also be an opportunity for connection and community. It's a portal to community.
Yeah.
But your last question, embrace imperfection. I don't know if
Hmm.
this would be it, but the fact that that was never my intention to be a single mother.
Yeah.
And I think you did it in a time where there wasn't a podcast like this to listen to,
Exactly.
Gila.
Yeah.
That's why what you're doing is so great. Like this is the 80s and the 90s. Like there was no like, let me go online and
Right.
it was like you're just going through the wild. We're just like in Antarctica in like
Yeah.
a t-shirt. And we're like, well, hopefully there's no polar bears. And we're just gonna try to get to the other side of this continent, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So I think you did a great job considering there were no resources. There wasn't like
Yeah.
you know?
You're right. There was nobody saying it's okay that you're a single parent.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just had obviously a lot of community around me,
Yeah.
but
Mhm.
there were many times that I felt like an outsider looking in. Like
Yeah.
especially when I was with her friends' parents. Everybody was married.
Yeah.
And
So
I would
hard.
be like on the outsider looking in, even
Hmm.
though they didn't make me feel that way. Oh my God,
Sure.
no stretch. But I felt that way.
Yeah.
So I think it took me a while to
Mhm.
embrace the fact that, oh, well, I'm luckier than some.
Yeah.
I'm doing okay. And I have
Yeah.
this wonderful child that I raised who's doing what I think is great.
You done good.
Thank you. It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Marisa, do you want to share something? I would love to hear, is there something that you do? You've already talked a lot about this, but like something that you do that fosters connection with your mom in your adult relationship dynamic?
We talk all the time. I tell her
Yeah.
everything. There's nothing that my mom doesn't
I know.
know about me.
Mm.
That's it. There's nothing. And even as you've gotten older, you think, oh, is into relationships or things happen or whatever. Oh, nope. She, whatever you tell me, she's gonna know. You know, like
Yeah.
I tell her everything, and I feel really grateful that we have that relationship. You know, no matter where
Yeah.
I've gone in my life or what's been happening, we just talk all the time, and I know that they say like the door is always open. You know, I've really
Yeah.
felt that it is. And we
Yeah.
try to spend, like as the time of this recording, right? It's that when you asked us, I was like, well, we'll be together for Thanksgiving, so we try to
Yeah.
make sure that, we always spend as much time as we can together.
Mhm.
And by the way, Gil, it's the same. We're just watching instead of going to the library and like
I know.
going to the movies, we'll like go to Barnes and Noble and then come back and watch, we're gonna watch a show on Amazon and like watch the whole thing over a weekend.
Yeah.
Like make our snacks and like analyze it. And not much
Yeah.
has changed in that sense. So
And
that's what I would say.
And I think it's interesting because I did own a home, and then now I have this little apartment. And I remember when she first, although she lived in New York City, so a small apartment, I thought, will she ever feel that here? And I think you do feel
Oh yeah, yeah.
comfortable there.
Oh yeah.
So when she
Yeah.
comes home, it's like when she leaves, I take her to the airport or the train station. It feels weird. Like
Yeah.
Yeah.
one of my neighbors said, "You really like when she's here?" I go, "I do."
Yeah, we do
Yeah.
our errand. There's nothing
Mhm.
more that we love than to like get a coffee from Dunkin' and go run errands.
Yeah.
That's
And I love that. Right.
my
Because
perfect day.
yeah, I talk about that a lot, right? We often think that these connection moments have to be some like trip to the amusement park, some like
Oh.
big outing. And it's not. It's, in the little moments of life, in watching a TV show together, in running to get a coffee at Dunkin', right? Those are when the connections. Yeah.
Let me just say this.
Yeah.
And then
There's a lot to say.
when she was a little girl, on a Friday, she watched all those Friday night shows, Urkel, whatever.
Uh-huh.
She'd come downstairs,
Mr.
I remember Urkel.
right? She'd finish playing. Then it was time to get in her pajamas. She would come downstairs with her pillow, that pillow.
I
and-
still have that pillow.
And she'd get and we would watch, and I would sit on the couch reading my magazines, watching. We do the same thing now. She
Mm.
finishes work. Now she's working.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Like I'll say,
Who knows what I'm doing in that room?
I was going to say, or you think she's
working.
working.
sometimes she'll say, and I forget sometimes she's working. I go, "You want to do this, sweetie? I have to work."
Mhm.
So she's working, and then she's done, and then we do the same thing.
Same thing. Oh, that's funny. I
Yeah.
didn't think about it like that, but
Yeah,
it is. It's the same thing.
I sit on the couch.
Yeah.
It's in the chair.
Yep.
I love it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You have such a special connection. I can feel it. I can see it. And it's beautiful and inspiring. And
Right.
I just want to really thank you for being here. It has been an honor, a privilege, a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Gila. This is great. Thank you.
That's it for this episode. I am so glad you found your way here. And remember, even if you're on your own, you don't have to do it alone. You've got this.